There, I tried the Wooting. Are you happy now?
Wooting.
Are you a gamer? Do you like gaming? Well, then you want the best keyboard for it, right? So what's the best gaming keyboard? Howdy hey, I'm Hipyo Tech, and I promise I'll stop saying gaming that way. I won't waste your time, because you probably read the title. I tried the Wooting 60HE. It's apparently the best gaming keyboard, and I'm gonna be putting that to the test. Now, this isn't your average Razer keyboard, where it's entirely copium on whether or not it's the best gaming keyboard. This actually has some unique technology. But I'm a keyboard enthusiast. I build custom keyboards. Like, seriously, a lot of them. This story begins with the secret to this keyboard. Not its keycaps, but actually its switches. And I'll be talking about that more later, so stick around.
Wooting.
Now I know who you are. If you're watching this video, you fall into 3 distinct groups. Number 1, you just want to know what the Wooting is about because you might want to buy one. Number 2, you already own a Wooting and are looking for validation from me, like my cat. Or number 3, you're my mom. Hi mom, thanks for the support. If you're my mom, please go comment. Great work, son. I'm so proud of you. Great work. Anyways, this keyboard was sent to me for free by Wooting, but that's because I asked for it. Also, I'm gonna say Wooting and Wooting and Wooting, and it's gonna be wrong every time, so please bear with me. This video is not sponsored, however, I am an affiliate and you can check this board out with the link down below. Now, this keyboard comes in at 175 bucks, and we're gonna be talking about whether or not that's worth it. But what we do know is worth it is this cable. That's a pretty nice cable. As far as accessories go, you're getting the bare bones here. You're getting a cable, whatever this is, a keycap puller, and 2 spare switches. Now, for some bizarre reason, mine didn't come with a switch puller like this. I feel like that is a L touch. Now, some of the most important things about this keyboard are its software and its switch-specific hardware, but I'll be talking about those later. Let's first talk about this chassis. Now, coming in at $175 US and shipping in batches, so it's technically a group buy, but they're trying to get it in stock, which will be good. This keyboard resembles any other gaming keyboard. It's got a unique flap on the front, but it really reminds me of a Razer Black Widow Mini. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, as like VTubers, it's really trying to go after gamers. For legal reasons, that last part was a joke. Now, the frame of this board is unapologetically plastic, which definitely leaves a lot to be desired, but is kind of expected with how much they probably spent on the switches for this board. However, because this board takes on a standard 60% form factor, you can swap out the case with a ton of luxury keyboard cases, and I'll do that in a future video if this video gets 10,000 likes. I say in a future video because it's probably going to be wood and really expensive. Now you're probably watching this and the first couple minutes have gone by and you're like, Hipyo, this is a plastic gaming keyboard. It's probably going to be terrible. Why are you even looking at it? Well, no, it's a plastic gaming keyboard with a strap. Now, of course, the best feature in any keyboard ever when you're a gamer is a strap. That way you can distract your cat so you can game harder. This is incredibly common knowledge, and everybody knows if you don't distract your cat, then you're not gonna get those frags. Now, even more on that, if you want to distract the enemy team, you can also use this as a fashion accessory and do a runway show. Is this bit incredibly overblown? Yes, but I wanted to smack my butt with the keyboard. But I think burglars might love it, I guess. Anyways, continuing on to the theme of gaming, let's talk about the Epic Gamer RGB. We'll talk about the keycaps later that leave a lot to be desired, but this board does have per key RGB lighting, which looks really good and quite bright. It's exactly what you would expect in a gaming keyboard, and I think it delivers on that very well. However, what it doesn't deliver on is the keycaps. I understand that they wanted shine-through keycaps, but I feel like this really just detracts from the premium feel of the board as a whole, and these keycaps are definitely the weakest part of the board. Now, these keycaps are double shot PBT, which basically just means they won't shine long term, but they're already pretty shiny and slick, like a freshly shaved forehead, kind of. But thankfully, because they're just a normal type of keycap, you could swap these out whenever you want it. Side note, I swapped some of them out just after filming this video, and I really didn't like the sound of any other type of keycap. Now, if you're not a keyboard enthusiast, you'll be happy to know that this keyboard already does come pre-foamed, and it's most of what I would do anyways when modding a keyboard. However, the switches are a bit more disappointing. Also, here's another example of the RGB being incredibly bright. Now, let's talk about those switches. This board is hot swap, but only supports these unique Lecker switches. Now, I might get some of this wrong, so please bear with me. These are the Gateron X Lecker switches, and they have a fancy little magnet that helps them actuate using a Hall effect sensor. You probably have no idea what any of that means, and honestly, I kind of don't as well, but here's the important stuff that you might want to know. It's different than a normal keyboard switch because it allows for analog input, which detects the full switch motion. This means that unlike a normal mechanical switch, where the actual input is coming from contact, this is coming from magnets. That's pretty cool. Now, a more skeptical Hipyo would say this is just a marketing gimmick to sell a keyboard with an ecosystem that you can't replace without their own parts. But there's actually some merit here. I'll talk about how it can actually be used in games later and why it's actually a gaming keyboard. But on top of having incredibly low latency, like super low latency, these switches do have a few core advantages over normal switches. But I have some qualms with them. Now, I won't rant for too long, but they call these factory lubed, and I feel like there's just something missing here, like they didn't lube the springs or something. Now, you can hand lube these switches, and I'll do that in a future video, but I'd say they're definitely the weakest part of the board sound-wise. There's a really nails-on chalkboardy type chatter when typing on this board that just is what you get if you buy it. One thing I was pleasantly surprised about is the stabilizers were actually lubed quite well. Except for the spacebar, there was minimal ticking, and I'd say overall these stabilizers were lubed very well from the factory. But now that I've talked about the switches and the keycaps, what do I actually think about gaming on this thing? Did I play any games?
Wooting.
Well, yes, I did take this thing for a gaming test run, and I do think that these switches are very good for gaming. So if you're the average gamer, the only feature here that I think is really significant is the less than a millisecond of latency that I don't have the equipment to put to the test. If you're a racing gamer that somehow uses a keyboard, then the analog input would actually be helpful, as you can do slight presses to kind of do like a slight turn. But there is one place where I think this board will give you a significant advantage. If you're one of those weeb Osu gamers, sorry, no hate. Oh, wait, sorry, we'll get to that in a second. Now, the software for this board, the Wootility, if you will, no, that's the real name, lets you do a bunch of really cool stuff, like setting different key presses to different parts of a switch's actuation. Now, they give some uses for this, but I'd want to know what you guys would actually use it for. And then what I think is the most useful feature is definitely the rapid trigger mode. It essentially makes it so the second you start to raise up on the switch, it's reset the key press and you can go down again immediately. Now, I'm using their footage here to explain this because, I mean, they already filmed it. That's so much easier for me. Now, this is what I think would be one of the major use cases for this keyboard, apart from just the low latency and nice software. Like if you're playing Osu and want that rapid trigger, that's probably really, really useful. Now, I play some games. I played some Deep Rock Galactic, some League of Legends, no Valorant. And I can't say I noticed the latency, but I'm sure some of you will say that you definitely noticed it. But what I did notice is that the arrow keys aren't there, and that makes me really sad because some games that I like to play, I use arrow keys on. Now, people in the comments could probably argue about this forever, but do I think the average person is gonna notice a 10 to 20 millisecond latency difference? Hard to say. You know yourself better than anyone, and I think if you spend $200 on a keyboard, no matter what, you'll probably cope into thinking you do. Now, is this keyboard perfect? No, not really. As I mentioned before, the switches are very chitter-chattery, and the case is plastic, and the keycaps are less than stellar. But, you know, there is a core software and hardware thing happening here that is very, very good. Also, I think the modability potential for this thing is off the charts, and I'll be checking that out in a future video, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Now, some of you guys only watch my videos just so I can tell you whether or not you should buy a keyboard or not, and for this one, I'm leaving that up to you. I'm sorry. The core features here are really, really cool, but the fact that it's a closed ecosystem on the switches is good and bad. If an epic gamer keyboard is what you're looking for, then this could definitely be it. And I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. I'll be leaving you with a sound test, and please watch the whole thing to support my YouTube algorithm overlords. Bye.